I realize that I do not have the medical qualification to make the statements or express the opinion that I wish to express right now. I feel it is a mistake and that it is unfair that the architects of the DSM-5 manual no longer allow a special group of autistic people to be classified as Asperger's, to be experiencing, to have Asperger's. I know that many people perceive that, well, autism is when someone has extreme sets of abilities and disabilities that people have, that an autistic person has both the extreme ability to perform certain functions and yet have the extreme disability or disabilities to perform other functions. I realize that many mothers, as well as in the medical community, feel that, well, there are certain autistic people whose disability simply happens to be social inaptness. Not that I don't feel it's social inaptness. Maybe it is social misalignment, as perceptive misalignment in social situations. For example, we may not realize it is rude to change topics in the middle of a sentence or to stop, to not complete a sentence, and that people may not realize that we don't see the point in continuing a sentence when the receiver of the message has already understood. Whatever else, whatever words after that is a waste of time, is unnecessary and inefficient use of words. And I do recognize that, not that I feel it is something that's wrong, it's something I now realize is not acceptable. That we have to finish our sentence. It's not that we are predisposed to be able to do that. It's that we have to remember to do that. And frequently we don't remember. It's not that we want to do it or deliberately do it. It's that we don't remember that we need to do it. That we don't remember that we cannot change topics in the middle of a sentence. Or we cannot be expressing 3 different directions of a topic within the same sentence. That we cannot, and not that we should not confuse people by discussing 3 different and unrelated topics within the same conversation or even within the same sentence. We find it an efficient use of time that we do not see why not. Why shouldn't we discuss 3 different topics within the same sentence or within the same conversation? What's wrong with that? I do realize it is unacceptable now, but I don't see why it has to be unacceptable. So we're still very functioning human beings. It's just that we don't have the mental ability to make the judgment. We do now because we memorize it. We memorize the rule. We memorize the patterns of why it is, but it's not because we see it as logical. So right now we are merely members of a continuum of autistic people, which is any other autistic people. We have mental disabilities just like any autistic persons. That's how DSM-5 would have us classified, would prefer it as classified. That it becomes a very normalized. If you understand the concept of information normalization, this is what their attempt at information normalization. That there should not be a distinction of a certain group of people, that it is difficult to draw a line in the sand because that line is often very blurred, that there are high-functioning autistic people who is able to communicate intelligently, but maybe unacceptably, but still intelligently in many social situations, but in certain social situations, they exhibit very clearly unintelligent, low intelligence. So those people are no longer Asperger's because they have no intelligence. I suppose they're no longer Asperger's in the older classification. And therefore it's unfair to such a person because otherwise in other areas he or she is high functioning. However, we have to bear in mind that engineering and statistics face the same boundary problem. In mathematics, we call it the boundary issue. In engineering and mathematics. So in statistics, we have tolerances too. And depending on, we draw a line, classifying whether a hypothesis is yes or no. Yeah, we just draw a line. It just happens. It falls just by a little bit change in data, and it's just too bad. So we can't say that, well, there are too many commonalities and therefore we can't make a distinction of a parakeet from other parrots. Oh, we can't say that, well, there are too many commonalities between the chimp and the human species, so therefore we should not make a distinct group of people, a distinct group of species called humans. It is unfair to the other chimps. Shall we? That's exactly what DSM-5 is doing. That there shouldn't be this subgroup. And it's also there are too many blur lines, the boundaries to blur in many circumstances to allow this special group of autistic people to exist. And it therefore is unfair to the other chimps. That there's such a special group of chimps called Aspergers. However, I feel it is unfair to us, which means we are classified. It is difficult for people, for insurance companies, for hiring managers to know that we otherwise are highly intelligent, able to perform a task, just wouldn't be able to communicate too well. That's all. We actually feel that we can communicate very well. We can, we should, as long as it is very objective communication. I don't know how that goes. That I know that people want to say that each autistic person should be judged on the merit of his or her individual characteristics and traits and decide that this autistic person is capable of functioning in the job or in the society that he or she is assigned to. I know what you're trying to do, what you all are trying to do. But it makes it so much more difficult. And people don't understand that if you want to do that, you should at least educate people that, well, if you encounter an autistic person, you need to spend like maybe $1,000 to see if this person can be hired to fulfill your needs. We're not going to make the judgment for you. You have to spend the money yourself. $1,000 in an expert to judge on our individual merit, whether we will function appropriately in the workplace. Function with skills and the abilities appropriate to their job description.